Speaker.
Denise Roche.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to take the call for the second reading of the Shop Trading Hours Amendment Bill for the Greens. Sir, I had the privilege of sitting on the Commerce Committee replacing my colleague Gareth Hughes for the submission process of this bill. And I want to thank the Chair and the permanent members for having me there. As you're aware, the committee were unable to reach a decision, a majority decision about this bill, which I think actually reflects just how vexed the whole issue is about retail trading on Easter Sunday. From my reading of the pages on the website, this is, I think, about the 10th bill on Easter Sunday trading that has come before the House since 1996. So it's about every 2 years there's a bill like this appears. And actually, it's probably the reason why we've got bits and pieces and little amendments and exemptions all over the country, with some places allowed to open and some places aren't, which I think, quite frankly, is a bit of a dog's breakfast. So, sir, this bill gives councils, territorial authorities, the ability to make a bylaw. This was the original bill, was going to give councils and territorial authorities the ability to make a bylaw to allow shops to open in their areas. And to quote the digest, there were three parts of it. Limited power to create bylaws, give shop workers the ability to refuse work on Easter Sunday without giving a reason, and enable shop employees to take a personal grievance if they were compelled to work on Easter Sunday or their employer treated them adversely as a result of their refusal to work on Easter Sunday. And I'm going to address a couple of those parts in turn, really. So the first part, which is about the councils, they can't actually make a bylaw. That's what we found out during the process. But they can, however, make a policy. And that was the recommendation that that side of the House were keen to put in as an amendment if the bill had have been passed at Select Committee, which it wasn't. But regardless of whether it's a policy or a bylaw, there is still a special consultative procedure that has to occur. And we heard from councils and Local Government New Zealand that this is actually quite an expensive process, because what it involves is consultation, calling for submissions, hearings, deliberations, exactly what happens with a Select Committee basically, but on a more regional scale. And all the councils that we heard from were concerned about the cost for the process, all that, plus the cost of the staff who have to support that process. And if we think about it, Parliament has got a lot more money sloshing around than our local councils do. So with the exception of a couple of councils, there were a couple like Rotorua, they expressed a clear preference for the government to make decisions about whether shops should be open or not on Easter Sunday, so that the ratepayers don't have to foot the bill. And at least there'd be some consistency across the country. And I agree with my colleague from Labor, Ian Lees-Galloway, that this bill is a badly drafted law in the first instance, but it's also, I believe, the only way it could get past Nationals caucus. So, sir, my Green colleagues and I are all opposed to this bill because we don't actually believe that retail workers will be protected. They won't be able to tell their employer that they don't want to work on Easter Sunday, and their ability to take a personal grievance is extremely limited, particularly since just taking a personal grievance, generally that only occurs when the employment relationship is in breakdown. And if it wasn't in breakdown before the personal grievance was taken, it's certainly going to be in breakdown after the personal grievance is taken. So what's the point? There's also the issue of whether retail staff actually can take a personal grievance. Maybe if they're in a union, First Union, which is the union for retail workers, they would be able to take a personal grievance, would have some protection. But in the retail sector, sir, there are an enormous number of shops that are small businesses, the worker is working alongside the employer, and they are not covered, they are not members of a union. In that case, they're unlikely to feel empowered to take a personal grievance, and given the low wages in the sector, it's unlikely they'll be able to afford a lawyer. So our opposition also stems from the fact that there's only 3.5 days a year when shops are closed. In the submission from First Union, which represents retail staff, they refer to a UNICEF report from 2007, which actually states that here in New Zealand, our workforce have one of the lowest rates of family time in the world. And since that report in 2007, it's also been shown that we have some of the longest working hours in the world. And I'll just quote, they said, removing one of the few remaining protected family days will certainly not increase the quality of living for New Zealand families. I think we need to recognise that families are under stress, huge stress. Today's data from Statistics New Zealand Net Worth Survey shows that the top 10% of New Zealand households own half our country's wealth, while the bottom 40% of the households in this country own just 3% of the wealth. And as our co-leader, Metiria Ture said today, when wealth inequality is this stark, it's clear that the economy is broken. Mr. Speaker, I would wager, and I'm not a betting person, I'm the gambling spokesperson, but I would wager that retail staff are not in that top 10%. They're more likely to be some of the 300,000 working people in this country today earning the minimum wage or close to the minimum wage. They're ordinary mums and dads who are spending longer and longer and longer hours at work to make ends meet. So, sir, if we take away one of their guaranteed days off, then their families will suffer. Mr. Speaker, this bill will be a personal vote. I think it's about recognising that Easter Sunday is a religious holiday, and some MPs hold very strong views about the Christian sacred days. Last time a bill like this was voted on, Todd Macleay's members' bill in 2009, National Party MPs Bill English, Chester Burrows, Peseta Sam Lotoenga, Tim McIndoe and Jonathan Young all voted against that bill. And we're certainly hoping that tonight the members on that side of the House will not be whipped and that they will be able to vote with their consciences. We're asking, sir, that MPs choose what is right for families and for the communities, because the economy works best when it's working for everyone. And sir, this bill does not help everyone. So I just want to reiterate, sir, that this is bad law and we really do need to kick it to touch. It's bad for councils, they don't like it. It's bad for retail staff and it's bad for their families. And I would urge MPs on that side of the House to use their personal votes to dump this bill. Thank you. Point of order, sir?
A point of order, Denise Roche.
I seek leave to table a online petition that was organised by the New Zealand Council of Trade Unions with 4,581 signatures, calling on MPs Peter Dunn and Te Ororo Flavel to vote against the bill.
Is there any objection to that process? There appears to be none. There was, sorry. Could you? There is objection.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr.